very much. If you can say quick hi and hello on the Kinu, good morning to you. Thank you very much indeed. While we wait for a few minutes, we're just going to play a quick video on collaboration, a project which I've worked on while we get Paul starting in 2 minutes time. So let me see if this screen works. And I'm just going to share this with you now. And that's a project on collaboration. If you can hear the sound and the images, please put your hands up. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to start at 10. So thank you very much indeed. Paul, if I can have you please on, before I introduce you, if I can have your video please for a quick intro. Thank you. Can we put a big round of applause for Paul from Perth? There's a 4-hour difference and Paul is from Australia. So I'm actually humble, honored to have Paul again. Last year Paul was there in the webinar. We talked about avoiding construction claims. Paul, just quickly before I introduce you formally, what are we expecting today and why collaboration is so important?
Well, hi, and thanks for having me, and hello to everybody out there. And I know some of you got up early to start the day, those that are in the distant time zones, the other side of the world from us, but welcome, and hopefully you'll learn something today. Hopefully you're going to see why collaboration when we discuss this slide presentation. So,
exactly.
Yeah, it's all about, as we saw from that introduction video, it's about a team effort, and we're only as strong as the other team members that we have, whether those are within our own team within the company or the greater team with the clients, project managers, contractors, suppliers, subcontractors, and everybody out there. No project is a success without a great team behind you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. If I can just ask you to stop your video for a few minutes and we'll come back to you shortly as I get into the presentation. Okay, so just want to make sure I've got my video. If you can see my screen, please, my slide, if you can put your hands up to validate the webinar. All right, good morning, everyone, and happy Saturday from Mauritius. And our talk today is on collaboration in the construction industry, which I'm really, really passionate about. And thankful to have Paul today as well. And as you can see, Paul have written 8 books, 6 for construction professional and 2 for homeowners. The 2 is on the right-hand side of the screen, which is Introduction to Building and Renovation Houses, volume 1 and 2. And the other 6 is for us. And I've already read 2 of them. I've got 4 more to go, and I'll touch on the book as well. So thank you for having Paul today as well. It's a great day, and I'm loving every minute of it already. So Paul Netscher, author and construction management consultant from Perth in Australia today. Quick agenda as we do. I'm just going to do a quick introduction, survey, presentation and Q&A in between as well. There's 3 parts of the presentation today. It's going to be a great presentation. It's going to be a long presentation, but capture every single notes that Paul's going to give us today. So 240 of you registered today as always, so thank you very much indeed for this talk. Thank you to Paul for giving back to the industry on a global scale. I also like to thank all of you for being here. Please, please, please email me after the event. Don't leave it too late because it becomes a problem for me because I'm the one that generates the certificate. So if you can just issue your email after the presentation, please send me an email at anil@cbdtalk.com. plus your feedback on how you find the webinar, which I can then send to Paul as a gesture of thank you. I think you know me already. Love construction, love learning, love sharing, love people, passionate about giving back. 18 years of experience, 19 years in a month time, and I'm excited that I've been so long and I'm still giving back. And thank you to all your support as well. Honored and privileged and humbled to have Paul as well today with us. And you. As we do, I just want to just go back on menti.com to see where you're watching us in Mauritius and also in any part of the world. So if you go to menti.com, please, and just type in 6624-1428 to log in. So menti.com, menti.com, and I'm just going to switch off the screen to the menti.com, and we'll just see if we can find you guys here. So you will see a screen there. If you can just go to menti.com and type in 6624-1428, and if I can just see if you guys are here. So already we can see V from Mauritius, Kimberly from Saudi Arabia. Great to see you, Kimberly, as always. So if you can, Oman, we've got a colleague from Oman as well. Great to have, Paul has worked in many countries, so it's good to see all these countries joining us right now. We've got Nigeria, it's quite early in the morning there, I know it's 7 a.m. Thank you. We've got Ritisha, who's a digital engineer, joining us as well. Riggs from Mauritius, fantastic to see you. So great to see all of you today. Yeah, so great to see you. We've got Lee from Singapore, fantastic to see you as well. So we've got a few continents as well joining us today. And Seychelles from Vanessa, great to see you as well from the beautiful island of Seychelles. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please keep putting the comments in. And I'm going to give you a few more seconds before we move on to the next one. And it's a great question, the next one, actually. Right, so I'm just going to move on to the next one, and here we go. So just making sure we've got the next question. Right, so this is good. Ruwan, this is not a question per se, but I've got understand Ruwan there. But what is your understanding of collaboration in the construction industry? Right, so it can be anything, right? What is your understanding? Someone said coordination, someone said teamwork. What is your understanding of collaboration? Does it mean bringing the team together, working towards a main goal, delivery for the client? This is what Paul will talk about us today. Is it a win-win situation for all of us? Imperative, teamwork. We've got teamwork. Teamwork is kind of the lead one right now because, as you can see on the screen, teamwork is in big bold blue. So we can see that integration, sharing risk, perfect results. Okay. Do we have such a thing as perfect result? I don't know, but I think that's a good comment there. Coordination is coming big now as well. Teamwork and coordination is huge. And I'm going to talk about Paul about that. Coordination is becoming the biggest single factor right now. If you miss coordination, you know, you have abortive work, frustration, conflicts. So thank you very much indeed, everyone. The 3 key one we can pick up, or the 2 main one, teamwork and coordination. Thank you very much indeed. As I switch back to my screen here on, right, so just going back to the slide again. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, again, please, if you can see my slide, if you can just give your hands up on that one. Thank you. I can see this, the hands coming up. Thank you very much indeed. All right, so this week in the UK is mental health. A lot of people lost their life, and I'm sure Paul will touch on that. And what I want to say is aim to instill 3 key action in daily work culture encouraging workers on the construction site to recognize mental health. Be aware if you or someone you know is struggling to cope. The second one is reach out, start the conversation. If you're struggling, talk to someone you trust, or if you know a colleague is struggling, offer your support. And finally, rebuild. Use the resources available to start taking back control. And this week is mental health in the UK, and I've got that from the mentalhealthawareness.uk. It's about open to everyone. It's about starting conversation about mental health and the things in our daily life that can affect it. This year, we want as many people as possible, individual communities and government, to think about connecting with nature and how nature can improve our mental health. So to me, my experience is it's all about keep talking, keep communicating, and keep connecting with people. You're gonna need to connect. So let me just share this video before I introduce Paul formally to you. Mental health is huge. The industry has a very poor track record in helping construction workers. So again, I'm just gonna go back on the mental health there and just share this with you now. Again, if you can hear the sound and the images, please let me know. Thank you.
There are times in all our lives when things can feel a bit too much. It can be stress at work, or worries about our family, or health. It can be feeling lonely. But there is a simple thing that can really help support good mental health: nature. More than half of UK adults say that being close to nature improved their mental health. 4 in 10 people say it made them feel less worried or anxious. Almost 2/3 of people said being close to nature meant they experienced positive emotions. Nature can't solve all our problems, but it can really help put things in perspective, take the pressure off, and bring calm, joy and wonder to our daily lives. So it can be helpful to try to prioritise getting close to nature. Find the time to go outside in a park or by a lake or a river, taking a moment to see, hear and feel nature. Or if it's hard to get out, look for wildlife from your window and listen to the birdsong. Or grow and look after a plant in your house. Notice their scent and colour. Or plan a day by the beach or in the countryside. The important thing is to try to connect with nature and notice its beauty and how it makes you feel. The Mental Health Foundation wants to grow awareness of the role nature can play in preventing distress and creating good mental health for all. We are also asking government and local councils to make sure everybody can enjoy the mental health benefits of nature. For tips on how to connect with nature or to find out more about our work, please visit mentalhealth.org.uk/MHAW or share with our hashtag #ConnectWithNature.
Okay, so thank you very much on that, and please make sure you know your mental health, and something I'll probably cover as well on a webinar, which I'll be probably looking to do myself because it's so important. But keep connecting with people and keep talking. I just want to share this to really to give a tribute to Paul. These are people, speakers and podcasters and social media influencers, casting a wide shadow, helping to shape and improve millions of lives between them. They have different areas of specialty, diverse background and very interesting, but in their own way, each carry the torch of the hope, positive movement, customer experience in their respective industry and values. And I can see Paul Netscher being there. You know, what Paul has given to the industry is representative of the future of this timeless teaching. Those who have only begun to realize the apex of the influence, the leaders who will define what personal development will mean to new generation. And there's people out there like Gabriel Bernstein, Tom Bellew, Brendan Burchard, Tim Ferriss, Jay Shetty, Lewis Howe, Trent Shelton, and Gary Vaynerchuk. But I can see Paul being there as well. So can we have a big round of applause for Paul for having written 8 books to the industry? Don't know when to find the time, but something we'll probably find out later on. So thank you, Paul, for being a modern thought leader. You've been around for 30 years, and I thank you for that. And today you're giving back as well, your time and energy and your wisdom to all of us. So thank you, Paul. Paul also has a website, so you can obviously Google that website. It's pn-projectmanagement.com. And Paul's got a lot of issues. Like if you're doing a dissertation, you're doing a research, this is the website you've got to go to, and you'll find a lot of things. And what Paul says there, 30 years of construction project management experience, developing successful construction project managers and building successful construction companies. Today's introduction is between a relationship between client and the professional team. Contractors and subcontractors appear to be becoming more fractious. Why? Poor construction project outcomes seem to be more frequent. So the question is, can we improve collaboration between the parties to achieve better project results for all? What should collaboration be? Must it be formalized, or does it just require a change in mindset from all project participants? And finally, you can make the change on your project, you can make the difference. So very important as well, again. So just quickly introducing Paul. Paul Netscher, 30 years of construction management experience, gained in 6 countries, involving 120 projects. His project included industrial, concrete, commercial building, houses, earthwork, road bridges, petrochemical, and infrastructure. And Paul, by background, is a civil engineer. And also it goes on to say, few in the industry are fortunate enough to be involved in so many different projects for such a wide variety of clients, including private, corporate, government, mining, and oil and gas. He has held senior positions in major construction companies and served on various industry bodies and advised on training, mentoring, construction, curriculum, and contractual matters. Last but not least, Paul is the author of several construction management books, including Successful Construction Management, The Practical Guide, a hands-on guide for contractors, Construction Management for Project Concept Completion, which is a valuable guide for employers, client project. And finally, the construction claim, the book which I love, and I will touch on that at the end, which is a short guide for contractors and trying to mitigate, conflicts and promote collaboration. So a quick survey, Paul, if I can have you please on the screen, as I do a quick survey on the industry as well, and just making sure I've got that there as well. So I'm just going to launch the polling now, and the polling is here for you guys. If you can please, what is the percentage of collaboration in the construction industry? Be honest. Is it 25%? Is it 50? Is it 100? What's happening? What's happening right now? And I think I love Paul to have a view on that before he shares screen. So what is the percentage of collaboration in the construction industry? Whether it's 25%, 50%, 75%, or 100%. What's your thought, Paul, while we're waiting for the poll to come through?
Yeah, I'm sure it varies from place to place, and we're probably looking at under 50% there. But yeah, thanks for your introduction while we're waiting for the survey, Anil, and a very important topic, the mental health topic, because unfortunately there are suicides every day from construction professionals, because it is a hard life, and it does go from people having a job to not having a job. But of course, the industry and clients and contractors don't make it easier for people, especially when they don't pay people and pay companies for work done, and that leads to a lot of heartache and a lot of mental health problems. Imagine you're trying to manage and run a company and you're not getting paid, and you can't pay your own employees, and you can't pay your suppliers and subcontractors, and it really leads to a lot of heartache and unfortunately suicide. So very important topic.
Paul, so just quickly, I'm just going to share the poll with you now. What do you think? What's the percentage out of 20, 50, 75, or 100? What percentage do you think will kind of prime?
Well, I said under 50. Your poll is probably going to show a lower number than that. So.
Once again, Paul, you're right. And I think that's what experience talk about. 25% says 18%, 50% says 44%, and 75%, we've got 71% says 75%, and 8% 100. So 44% of the audience say 50% of collaboration in our industry, and technically that's not good enough. We really need to get to the 100, and that's what Paul is going to taught us today. So Paul, if you want to share your screen, please. And what's your key observation on that poll, Paul?
Yeah, I don't necessarily have observations there. Sorry, I'm just trying to set this up. Yeah, it's good to see that some people think that the collaboration is good, but it obviously shows many challenges that the industry needs to get through to improve collaboration. And probably I think a lot of it is not fully understanding what collaboration is, which is what we'll go into a little bit in this slide presentation. What does collaboration mean for people? And I know you did do the poll survey at the beginning, and teamwork certainly came out of it.
All right, Paul, thank you very much indeed. And when we get to part 2, I've got a poll survey for part 2. Thank you, Paul. And we've got 100 of you watching Paul right now from different parts of the world and in Mauritius as well. Can we have a big round of applause for Paul? Paul, take it away. And once again, humble and honored to have you. Thank you, Paul.
Right, thank you. So you did the introduction, so we'll just skip those slides quickly, thanks. So yeah, so this is just some news headlines that from around the world. So look at this, Mascot Towers repair bill passes $10 million as residents hit with special levy funding arrangement. I'm not going to go into the details of these. We've got a full-on course, but this is just media headlines. Woman claims her £350,000 new build home has 245 faults. Warnings of unsafe balconies put the Rosebery unit residents on edge. Downtown St. Petersburg Bliss condo owners sue developers over shoddy construction. And these are coming from all around the world, Australia, UK, America. Horrible sequence of mistakes, how bullet train contractors botched a bridge project. Berlin's new airport finally opens, a story of failure and embarrassment. 3.6 million in attorney fees atop a $600,000 suit. I did discuss this one in my last webinar. Nearly half of America's deadliest jobs are in construction. Fish market redevelopment costs blow out by $500 million. Purple Line project delays, cost overruns reveal long brewing problems. Samsung C&T reveals $1 billion loss on Roy Hill. Contracting firm files 306,000 lawsuit against the city for failing to pay for work completed. Scancer USA sued by local businesses for economic losses from Florida bridge shutdown. High lead levels found in drinking water at New Children's Hospital. Client sues design team after Costain project cost nearly doubled. California bullet train section faces 800 million overrun delays. Crossrail cost spiral to 19 billion. Cadena Partners allegedly owes 3.6 million for downtown condo construction lawsuit. And yeah, sadly, 120-year-old contractor Harry Fairclough ceases trading. And I'm talking about a company there, a contracting company, not a person 120 years old. But yeah, a construction company with a 120-year-old history, 120-year history basically goes bankrupt. So yeah, a lot of things, and not pointing fingers, but I'm sure we can ask the 150 participants in this webinar, and each of you will give us at least one example of a project that's gone wrong or where there's been an injury or whatever. Yeah, so is this what construction projects have come to? Companies going bankrupt, quality problems, projects going over budget, people being injured, legal suits, etc. So is this what construction projects have come to? as I said, cost overruns, late completion, accidents, poor workmanship, contractors going bankrupt, and more. So how did we get here? Is the construction industry in a race to the bottom? Now, of course, there are many construction projects that are successful. There are many great clients, many great contractors, but are these becoming fewer? Are those projects heading to extinction, a bit like the dodo in Mauritius? Are they being driven to extinction by greed, by people, the mighty dollar going for the easy targets? So that's a question. So can we improve how we do construction? So what do you think, Anil? Do you think we can improve how we do construction?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm sure we can.
I love this picture which I took, and this is an apartment building that's close to us, and fairly upmarket apartment building, and people moved in, and the contractor was on that project for probably nearly 18 months after the project was completed. Almost had somebody full-time repairing defects, and in fact that scaffold that you see in the picture was constructed sometime like a year after the project was handed over to owners, and the contractor had to go back to redo the waterproofing and fix up the balcony. So imagine what that cost. But apart from the cost, there's the reputation, there's the inconvenience to the clients, etc. So that brings me to the next section. So a 2016 study undertaken by KPMG, which surveyed clients or owners, found that over half of clients involved with construction projects had suffered underperforming projects over the preceding 3 years. Only 1/4 of their projects came in within 10% of the scheduled duration, and less than 1/3 of their projects came in within 10% of their budgets. So it's staggering statistics to think that 2/3 of construction projects were completed substantially late, and 3/4 exceeded their budget by more than 10%. Wow,
That's a lot.
what statistics? But the question is, are these the only metrics for judging the success of a project? So let's ask these questions. If a project is finished on time and within budget, but the contractor lost money, was the project a success? Well, maybe it was a success for the client, but obviously the contractor didn't have a successful project if they lost money. And what if the project is finished on time and in budget and the contractor made money, but a subcontractor lost money? Well, maybe the contractor and the client are happy with the project, but the subcontractor lost money. It won't be very happy. And what if the project is finished on time and within budget and the contractors made money, but someone was killed while working on the project? Well, obviously not a successful project for the people related, the person killed and those related to that person. What if the project is finished on time and on budget and contractors made a profit, but the project is of poor quality? Well, that's not great for the client. They're going to be repairing quality issues, and probably even the contractors going to be called back to repair quality issues. So what if the project is completed on time and within budget, and the contractors made money, but workers were underpaid? Well, obviously, our workers are not going to be happy. And what if the environment is damaged during construction? And what about if the contractor harms their reputation, perhaps by annoying the neighbors or being unresponsive to their clients' concerns, or perhaps the contractor lodged spurious variation claims. So the contractor, you can make as much money as you like on a project, but if you harm your reputation, well, probably the next project's going to be a long wait away. And what if there are ongoing legal disputes? So as we can see from this, there are many factors that make a project successful. And simply finishing a project on time and within budget does not mean the project was a success. Projects which are a success for one party may be a disaster for others. So how can we change this? And can we look at a bigger picture instead of just getting the project finished on time and making as much money as we can? So that brings us to each project has many stakeholders. And is it possible for them all to have a successful project? A win-win for all parties. And this is the vital question. Should the success of one party depend on another's failure? So bringing a project on time and in budget, does that depend on the contractor losing money, the cheapest price? For the contractor to make money, does that depend on getting the cheapest price, not paying subcontractors, and subcontractors losing money? Surely we haven't come to that point where the success of us, the success of our project depends on someone else's failure. So teamwork, and this came up in the poll that Anil did earlier, teamwork.
Yeah.
Projects are built by a team. And if one member of the team fails, it jeopardizes the success of the project. And the team consists of the client or owner, designers, project managers, the contractor, and more. And of course, construction project managers rely on their team, which includes their workers, their head office support, subcontractors, suppliers, and more. But regrettably, too often, clients or owners scheme how to pay the least money, while contractors try and trip up their clients. This leads to projects ending in conflict and nobody wins. So the team is usually only as strong as the weakest link. So as I said, we've got this team, project managers, owner, contractors, subcontractors. You have a weak contractor, the project's probably going to head for failure. You have a weak subcontractor, the project's heading for failure. We are only as strong as the weakest link, a bit like a chain. So here we are. Is your project a chain on the top right-hand side, or is your project the chain looking a bit like the rusted one? Rusted links about to break. Have you got the strongest team on your project? The best contractors, the best subcontractors, the best suppliers, the best designers, the best people? Can the project be a success when there's a weak player in that? So what does your project team look like? Are there rusted, weak links that will cause your project to fail? Unfortunately, many projects are managed in this fashion. There's conflict within the contractor, between the contractor and the designers, between the designers and the owners, between subcontractors and the contractor. Is this your project? And is this the only way to manage a construction project? Surely not. Surely we can do better than this. So, the question, is it possible to improve collaboration on our projects? And the poll that Anil did, obviously, collaboration can be improved when we're showing many people thinking that collaboration's only 25%.
Yeah.
So it's collaboration between contractors and clients, collaboration between contractors and designers, collaboration between contractors and their subcontractors and suppliers. And what will it mean for construction projects and the construction industry? And importantly, what does this collaboration look like? So that brings us to the end of part one, and not sure if there are any questions so far.
No questions so far, Paul, but yeah, I think it's all good. If you move on to part two, yeah, thank you. I've got a question for part two, and if I want to just share the poll there as well for part two. So I'm just going to launch the poll here for all the participants. There's a few questions coming in as well. If you want to put your question as well, everyone, as I can see the question coming in. Does technology improve collaboration? And Paul has a lot to say about it. And it'd be good to have your views on that one as we look into, right. So yeah, please put in your poll. Does technology improve collaboration? That's a great question. Which obviously is a follow-up to Paul's slide later on. What's your thought on that and the percentage, Paul?
I think there's going to be a lot of yeses in this one.
Okay, sounds like right. I'm just going to share it. So 97% says yes, it does improve collaboration, and 3% says no. Right, that's interesting. Be good to please, if there's been 2 people who said no, love to have your views on the Q&A as well. I've got a question before you move to part 2, Paul. There's a question from Henry in Nigeria, and Henry says, how can one pick efficient members of the project team, eliminating the weak link? Wow, that's a strong one. So how can one pick efficient members of the project team, yet eliminating the weak one? That's a bit unfair, right?
Well, not really. You know, and we're going to come to that later, I think, in part 3. You need to, well, if someone can't perform, they can't perform. You know, why would you pick them to be in your team? It's like a football team or soccer team. You don't put a weak person in there just because you like them or whatever. You go to the big, I'm sure in Nigeria, your national team there, I'm sure you don't want any weak links in that team. You want the best team, the best people, and sometimes you have to pay a little bit more to attract the best talent, and but that brings the best team. But of course, a team is not built around one person, and sometimes one particular person is not entirely indispensable, but one person, one good player doesn't make a good team either. So.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. We've got a next question from Rajiv. And Rajiv, I think is in Oman, I believe. Rajiv says technology also brings constraint and everyone needs to be on the same platform. There's a long learning curve. What's your thought on what Rajiv said about, you know, being on the same platform, but also at the same time, we are in a learning curve, right?
Well, I'm going to get on to technology and my thoughts on technology. So I might be disagreeing with that poll
Okay.
that we did just now. So
all right, fantastic. We've got Kavi, I believe. Kavi says technology is as good as the people fluent in it, usually if you want. So we'll talk about that later on. We've got a question from Sibanda, and Sibanda says, does the form of contract used on project like NEC, FINIC, or JCT determine the level of collaboration? So does contract kind of promote collaboration? What's your thought on that, Paul?
well, I think it comes down to the people that administer the contract, and that the contract is used in the pure form. Unfortunately, many owners or clients and the same, and I'm not just picking on the owners and clients, because the contractors do the same thing with their subcontractors. They do gerrymanger and change these contracts to suit them instead of using them in the pure form without clauses deleted and changed, etc., and without a whole addendum of special contract clauses particular to that contract. So, and I've worked with many forms of contract, and probably if I had to take my pick of it, I might go for the NEC form of contract. But again, it all comes down to people and interpretation, and whether people and collaboration is a whole lot more than just the contract, as we'll see.
Okay, we've got two more questions before we conclude. Yusuf says collaboration is increasingly difficult in my country, such as Nigeria, as most construction professionals feel threatened by others. What was your experience working in 6 or 7 countries in Africa? Do you get threatened by, gangsters and things like that?
Not in my day, no. That wasn't an issue. That is a particular issue. But I think we've got to not look for excuses. And again, it comes out in our third part of this discussion, is what is actually collaboration. And I think we've got to be a bit careful we don't misunderstand the collaboration part of it.
Okay, and Paul, you talked about teamwork. How do you do teamwork workshop if you were to galvanize a team? Normally people are thrown onto a project with 5,000 drawings and say, get on with it. But we don't really have time to gel and galvanize. So what's your thought on that, really, in terms of, you talk about the team is usually only as strong as the weakest link, like a chain. So how do we do that, getting the team to work together?
Yeah, Neil, I think you're probably going into details of individuals rather, but first of all, it's about having the right team, and the right team is not always the best person or the best contractor, as they say. There's horses for courses, and you're not going to pick a racehorse to go and plow your field, or so it's about having the right team members, and then it's about understanding the strengths and weaknesses of those team members, so that you can utilize and use the strength of the individuals, but at the same time you need to protect and help the weak links, the weaker people. And yes, I know when you're starting a project, you're thrown in there, and hopefully you're not starting with completely new people that you've never worked for within your own team. But certainly the projects where I had kind of that went wrong was when I was working with a completely new team and didn't understand their strengths and weaknesses. So you kind of give people rope because you want to give them responsibility, and then you've given them too much responsibility. So yes, the projects that have gone wrong for me is often because I didn't fully understand the team. The team as a whole was completely new for me. So
okay. All right, thank you very much indeed. We've got just a statement from Sarah Vanan. Collaboration also depends on the good faith of people. It varies. But there's a last question which I'd like to take before you move on to part 2. we've got Anishta. She's a civil engineer by background, just like you, Paul, who is a civil engineer by trade. Anishta say, hello all. What are your thoughts about collaboration in the construction industry in the middle of COVID-19? So how are you finding the COVID-19 pandemic stroke collaboration?
Well, Anil, I don't think that because I'm not out there working right now, so it's not a question that I can answer straight off. But I also don't understand why that should change the collaboration of people, because as we're going to see, collaboration is about working together with the team and managing the team. So I'm sure you can go into more detail, as you did really with your the video that you showed at the start on mental health.
And Paul, just a quick one. If you can go back to slide before, you had a picture of the two people shouting. If you can just go back to slide. And just one more again. Yeah. I mean, why we do this? I mean, I'm just going to do a quick survey as well, but why we keep having this? Can you relate to this picture? So why you've got that picture there, and why is it so important to have a cool, calm, composed attitude as opposed to start fighting?
Sorry, are you asking me a question?
Yes, I'm asking you a question, sorry.
Obviously, and we can go into detail. I think we cover some of it at the end, but people, they're always fighting. No, it's the wrong thing, but egos get in the way is a big problem. It's we get into a bit of a winner take all mentality. So the louder I shout, the bigger I am, maybe I can win the argument, instead of going back to look through it logically, and we can discuss it in a future claims course. You know, it's about understanding and considering the other person's point of view.
Exactly, Paul. What I'm also doing, Paul, while you're talking, I've actually got a survey. Can people relate to this picture? So I've got the survey there as well. And already a lot of people can relate to it as well, because we've seen many young people, they go into meeting and get affected by the, aggressive fight between a few team members. So I'm just going to share that with you now, the polling poll, just before and then you can move on to, and already you can see 91% say they can relate to this picture, and 9%. So your final thoughts on that before we conclude, Paul? So 91% say they can relate to it in our industry.
Well, I think we can see that in the amount of legal battles that go further from this, and you can read in the news media of companies going into long and protracted legal disputes. So I'm sure it can be expected.
All right, thank you. Take it away. Thank you, Ross, indeed, Paul. Part 2. Thank you.
Yeah, so what does collaboration mean? And that was a question came up. Does technology improve collaboration? So we have BIM, which is the collaborative tool, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, document sharing, various collaboration tools, and more. So how does this technology add to and improve your project? Does it improve collaboration? So many people believe that technology will benefit the construction industry, improve the management of construction projects, and improve collaboration. Indeed, there are many new and innovative apps, systems, and technology that can help sharing and collaboration. But simply using sharing and collaboration technology does not mean we are actually collaborating. We're using Zoom, we're using a collaborative or form of collaborative technology, and I'm talking today, But if you on the other side are fiddling, looking at your emails, then are we collaborating? Are you listening to what you're saying? Or if I'm talking on a subject that's of no interest to you, maybe discussing my books for the next hour, is that collaboration when I'm only giving you my side of things and not what you want to hear? So simply using sharing and collaboration technology does not mean we are actually collaborating. They are mere tools, and they require people using the technology to use it correctly, and more importantly, to want to collaborate. So you can have BIM on your project, you can be sharing the designs between designers, but you need the will of the participants to be putting the information in, and you need to be able to use the information that comes out of it. So just as good technology cannot make a poor construction project manager good, so too good technology cannot force collaboration between unwilling partners. And I think some clients and owners and project managers misunderstand collaboration. We've put the systems in place, we've put in BIM, so there's collaboration on the project. But collaboration takes people, it takes a willingness. So it's great technology we have. We can share information between us. I can talk to people halfway across the world, but it does require me to give out knowledge and experience, and it does require participation and that you're listening from your side. So however, the appropriate technology used correctly will help good project managers be more effective, and it can help collaboration between those who want to collaborate. So let's not get hung up purely on the technology. The technology is a means, and you need people wanting to collaborate to use those. So does the collaboration need to be in the form of an alliance between the contractor and client? Now, many contractors think, well, collaboration depends on the client. It depends on the form of contract. So we have what we call alliance contracts. And alliance contracts can work well for some large projects, but it requires an accurate budget to formulate a profit share agreement. So there's more to collaboration than just this. Sorry, because what about small projects? You can't have a form of alliance or alliance contract. It doesn't work on most projects. So let's look at the definition of collaboration. And I think many of you did touch on this earlier in the survey. So a dictionary definition says the situation of two or more people working together to create or achieve the same thing. Now, the project is something that two or more people are working on, the construction project. A further definition from another dictionary, collaboration is the act of working together, especially on a goal or shared project. And collaboration is often used in a positive context to refer to two or more parties successfully working together on professional or artistic projects. And it often implies not just cooperation, but sharing and developing of each other's ideas. So I think that last bit is quite an important line, because it's not just cooperation, but it's sharing and developing of each other's ideas. And where does the word come from? Well, it comes from a Latin word, and the first part meaning together, and the second part work. So it's basically together work, working together, and that's what collaboration is. And similar words are teamwork, partnership, cooperation, association, alliance. And I think many of our viewers brought up those words: partnership, teamwork, cooperation. So just touching on some of my experiences, just to give samples of what I think is collaboration. So one of my most successful projects I've been involved in was the civil construction works for a large minerals process plant.
Wow.
And why was this project successful? Well, it was completed on time, constructed to a high quality standard, was within the client's budget, and was completed safely. In other words, it was completed with minimal problems, disruptions, and no industrial relations issues. And for us, obviously, importantly, we had a profitable project. So what was the reason for the success? Well, we'd previously successfully completed a similar but smaller project for the same client and their team. And on the basis of this success, we persuaded the client to negotiate their next project with us, rather than requesting a number of contractors to price the works. So negotiating the contract with us had a number of benefits for the client and ourselves. So the client knew they had a contractor who could deliver a project safely with the required quality, with minimal fuss, and on time. And since we had previously had experience with similar projects, we understood the construction schedule or program and its critical parts. We understood what was required in terms of people, equipment, and formwork. And we had a clear understanding of the client's requirements, so we're able to plan around them. So by being engaged on the project at an early stage, we were able to work with the designers to ensure the design was constructible, enabling significant savings on the construction duration. We worked with their planners to ensure the project schedule was realistic and that follow-on contractors received the earliest possible access to the structures. We could influence some of the client's industrial relations policy, and we developed relationships with key members of their team, enabling the project manager, the client, the designers, and us to work as one, anticipating problems and solving them together at an early stage. And as soon as the financial and contractual negotiations started, we knew we had an excellent chance of being awarded the project, and we started to plan the project, assembling our best team, ensuring many of the staff, including the project manager, had worked previously on similar projects. Now, I'm sure in your game, Anil, often you don't know you're going to get awarded a project, then you get the letter and you've got to start the next day and you've got to scurry around because you're pricing many projects at once and the client's got 6 or 10 different prices and he finally awards it to you, and you've got like less than a week, probably a few days, to assemble this construction team to find the best people for the job, which aren't, as some of the clients and owners think, are sitting on the shelf there just waiting that you can pluck them off and put them into the project. Maybe the day before you even got awarded another project. Now you got to staff 2 projects. So I'm sure that sounds familiar to many of you. So this running around and is this going to get the best project team? So in this case, knowing the project was going to be negotiated with us, it didn't mean we were going to get the project for 100%, but it was probably a 95% chance that the client or the owner was going to give us the project. So we could set aside the right equipment, start planning the project, setting aside the right people for the project, and not this last minute rush around. So to finish the story, what's more, since the contract was negotiated, we're in a position to ensure all the required management resources were included in our price, so there was never any concerns that our price hadn't allowed for sufficient stuff. So we had the time to develop our price, make sure we'd allowed sufficient safety people, we'd allowed for the safety on the project, we'd allowed the right people and equipment. So no doubt going into the project, our price was not the cheapest, wouldn't have been as cheap as if the client went out and on the open market asked 10 contractors to price the project. Let's get the cheapest price. But how much was it worth to the client to have their project delivered on time, delivered safely, delivered with minimal hassle, have no delays to their follow-on contractors? I'm sure those savings far outweighed possibly the extra costs of negotiating it with us.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, some of you and your contractors are saying, well, of course, all of that depends on the client and the way the client goes about doing his business. So how can I, as a contractor, improve collaboration on my project? So this is just another example from my many projects. So we on this project involved constructing factory space for component manufacturers for a new model of Mercedes-Benz. And the launch date of the new model was set and immovable, because you can imagine a big company like Mercedes, we're launching that model on that date, and you're with us or you're not with us. It's going to happen. And we had 7 months to get the manufacturers into this new facility. And it was a large project. It was in South Africa, so it was in those days over 350 million rand, I think. So it was in dollar terms in those days, it would have been about $70-odd million. But and missing this date would mean that the components would be manufactured elsewhere and the facility could not be used, because Mercedes said, if we're going to use the components, they must come from that factory. They must be tested as if they came from that factory, and then they must be manufactured from the factory. You can't manufacture them at another facility and then halfway through the manufacturing of this new model, you then transfer to this new facility. It had to be from the start, from day one, and the parts had to come out of there. So if we missed the date, basically the factories would have stood empty. The Mercedes would have got their parts from suppliers manufacturing elsewhere, and the client would have sat with this massive factory space that would have been empty, and they wouldn't have had money. So unfortunately, the client's design team started to slip, and we weren't getting information, and the project was soon heading for trouble. As I said, it was 7 months, so there was not much catch-up time. If you lost 2 weeks, you were almost dead in the water. And we, as the contractor, we could have sat back and let the project drift further behind schedule. After all, we had submitted our information required schedule to the client, and we submitted our early warnings and intention to claim for these delays. We were covered, and we would have been awarded an extension of time, a change order with costs, because we had done everything in our power to do the work. We were being delayed by the client's design team. But what about the project? What about our reputation? What about the entire project's team's reputation? The project would have been a failure, even though we made money. Was that good enough? Certainly, I was not going to accept a failure. So at this stage, I was the managing director, general manager of the construction division doing this project. I had a good contracts director. I had good project managers on the project, but this project was so critical that as a senior manager, I got involved with the team and I called a meeting with the client and senior managers of their project team and designers. So it often helps to get senior management involved, and some of our contractors, their senior managers sit back at head office and don't get involved on the project and let our projects possibly sink when a team effort can pull the project through. So I called everybody together and I insisted on dealing with the top of the client, top management of the project team, top management of the designers. And I insisted we resolved issues and problems there and then. So we had a meeting on site. Everybody had to fly to the project site. We had a meeting and I explained the consequences of their inaction. The project was going to fail unless everybody pulled up their socks. And I provided a solution where we could work in areas essential to the component manufacturers so their access was not delayed. So I said, look, we can finish the factory area. So I came up with a solution. I said, we can't finish the whole project now. We've missed the date. We've been delayed too much, but this is the solution. We can give you the factory areas, the manufacturers can start installing their equipment. They're not going to have the offices. They're not going to have the toilets. We can provide temporary toilets for the manufacturers if they need the facilities. Mr. Client, you'll pay for it. I'm sure you won't mind paying for it. They said, of course we'll pay for it because we don't want any delays. I said to the engineer, look, we need certain concessions because you wanted the building closed up before we did the floors. We can't do that. We can put up temporary shelters while we're pouring the concrete. So I came up with a solution how we could collaborate to get the project back on track. And of course, the client's team, the project manager and the designers, you can imagine they weren't very happy with me because we were basically managing them. We said, we need this. And I didn't quite lock the office door, but they all said, well, we'll go back and do the drawings. I said, no, you're going to stay here now. I don't need drawings. Here's a site instruction book. You can write your instructions. You can give us sketches, and we need the information today. And the architect, I think they wrote about 30 site instructions that day with sketches and whatever. I said, give us the instructions. You can go back, do your nice drawings later. We can get the drawings next week or in 2 weeks' time, but we need the information today.
Paul, just a quick one on that. Do you think, just a quick one in terms of colleagues, it could be anybody. Like back in your days, we used to have sketches shoot to the contractor immediately. But now people say, well, we'll go to the back to the office and go to the CAD, CAD drawing boards and whatever. What's your thought on that? Has it changed from when you were back then with sketches being issued straight away, as opposed now to formally issue a construction drawing?
Well, I think even then they weren't keen to issue us sketches, but, basically, I was managing them and said, look, we as the team, we have to get this done. This is what I need. This is what we can do. This is the best we can do, but we require your input, your help. And I think what it's coming down to, again, is that word collaboration. How can we get the project built? When we're in trouble, how can we get out of trouble together? And you can sit back and say, oh, well, I want nice drawings and we'll give you nice drawings. But if we're going to wait 2 weeks for that, that's not going to help us.
Absolutely.
So I think it's a change of mindset, which is where we come to at the end, is that what do we have to do to get the project completed? And as I said at the start, in this case, we as the contractor could have sat back and said, happiness is we're going to have a wonderful variation claim change order at the end of this project because we're being delayed. And a lot of contractors are like that. You know, they almost don't tell the client we need this information ahead of time. They don't tell the client ahead of time that we need access and wait to the event to happen. And that doesn't help the project. You've got to be proactive and manage the situation. And that's what collaboration is. It's about not tripping up others. It's about delivering the project together, delivering it on time. So yes, at the end of the day, because some areas ran over the time, we did get an extension of time for the non-essential areas. And we were paid for that. But the important thing was to deliver the critical areas for the client's tenants. So on this project, we made money. The essential parts of the project were delivered on time. Obviously, the client was happy because his tenants could move in time. Mercedes weren't held up. The model was launched. All the components that had to be manufactured there were manufactured there. And a nice thing, we went on to complete another 4 phases of the project, and with a total value of nearly 80% of the original project value. So we completed the first phase of the project and we did another 4 sections, which in total were worth nearly 80% of the original project value. And because the project was successful, the client's team, the designers, the project manager forgot how we made them sweat for the slippage and how we hauled them into the meeting and got them to write all these site instructions to give commitments to get the project back on track. So a successful project for all, which could have been a disaster for all. If we'd failed, if the project was finished late, the client wouldn't have had any tenants in the building. We wouldn't have done the extra 4 phases of work on that factory complex. We would have made money, of course, we would have been happy, but it wouldn't have been good for reputation. So what I'm trying to show here is that collaboration does not depend only on the client. It does not exist solely because of technology. Technology helps. And it does not have to be spelt out in the contract. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. But collaboration requires cooperation and willingness from everybody in the project team. And collaboration is a mindset. It's not them and us. It's we. It's about a successful project for all parties. A win-win for everybody. So I've shown collaboration is sometimes possible. I've shown you the benefits. But can we make it a permanent change in the construction industry? A change for the better? And where do we start? Which is what we discuss in our part 3.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, and that's Paul Book's on the construction management from project concept to completion. This was a review from Paul, where you had a great review. It was a real case where what and how to construct integrated with why, when, where. An easy manner of writing is making content understandable for construction managers to excel their capabilities in financial and investment fundamental. At the same time, it's a unique input to improve the knowledge in the area of engineering and construction for those who are concentrated on project management concept only. And that's a review on Amazon, which I've sent you the link as well. All right, so I think I've got a few questions before we move to the final part. There's a question of, obviously, a lot of people are looking for your slide, but it's on YouTube as well. There's a comment from Pranav. He says, some contractors nowadays do not allow for sufficient staff and workers in the PNG section. That's the preliminaries and generals. And that he has a massive impact on the project outcome resulting to loss. As site QS, while preparing the cost report every month, this is where the loss comes from. How can we ensure that we cater for sufficient staff while ensure also considering competition from other contractors? What's your thought on preliminaries and preambles and general items, Paul?
Well, I mean, most importantly is the project must be staffed correctly and it should be priced correctly. This of cutting the price and hoping you'll make money through the life of the project is madness. If you're going to lose money on the project, you may as well not win the project. You may as well pay your people to sit on the beach or do something more pleasurable than have a job on a losing project. And if you don't have the right people on the project, you're less likely to have a successful project. You're less likely to make money on the project. And it's going to be bad for the morale of the people when, and we could literally spend an hour on staffing the project correctly. So.
Okay, we'll take, I've got a few questions. Young engineers and managers and project engineers are often undervalued or even belittled on construction site by experienced seniors, leading to conflict affecting site progress. So what Saravanan is saying is that experienced senior managers and leaders tend to ignore or belittle, engineers and young engineers. How do you tackle this problem, Paul?
Well, look, I think it's from two sides, and again, it's two big topics. One is respect, and it's important. Respect is two-sided, so respect is not earned by job title or age or whatever, and it's something that I discuss in the training course that I'm busy preparing and launching. So respect is very important. And the other thing that is also discussed in that course that's important is this thing about discrimination. And really, we've got to be so careful. We're so desperate for good people. How can we exclude half of the population if we're going to discriminate on sexism basis? We don't want to employ ladies in the construction industry, or we're discriminating against people because of their religious or their cultural or their language or education backgrounds. Every person is critical, and we need to be looking for the best people and developing the best people. But obviously, young engineers and new starters on the project also have to earn respect. So
absolutely,
it's a two-sided thing.
We've got a question from Mr. Devan Dalia, who is the chairperson of the Council of Registered of Professional Engineers in Mauritius, one of the senior practitioners and role model in our industry. Mr. Devan is saying, does global consultancy improves collaboration instead of designers being appointed separately by a client? So what he's saying, does global consultancy improve collaboration?
Collaboration is about individuals. It's about individuals and how they want to work together. I don't think and the collaboration is within the company. So whether the company is global or it's small, or bringing in people from all over the world, it's how people work together. And as we'll go on into this third part, some of my thoughts on collaboration.
Okay, thank you. But also what he was saying as well is that the client would like a one-stop shop consultancy as opposed to appointing different people in line with the agreement. So what he's saying also is, I think from what I understand is it also beneficial for the client to appoint a one-stop team? So like, okay, we have a global consultancy and this will include the architect, the engineers, the MEP. What's your thought on that, as opposed to appointing separate design team as per silo, as I say?
Well, I think you've got to be, possibly there are advantages, but there are also companies that work silos within the company, so that your one are the architects within the organization talking to the cost consultants in the organization, and are they talking to the engineers? So it may eliminate some of the friction points, but it does depend on the organization. And even amongst contractors, you can have empire building within a company, and you have empires and silos within a company of the MEP and the architects and the whatever. So it requires people to collaborate within that organization.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. We've got a question from Benjamin, Pan Prashad, Saibu, Ravin. We will take your question shortly. Let's move on to part 3. Because Paul's got 20 slides to go through, lots of wisdom to be shared. And I want to have a quick poll before Paul goes on to that one. And this is a good one. Where does it go wrong on a project? In the beginning, before the project even starts, through the project, or at the end? So I think that's a good question before we really kind of look for the next 22 slides from Paul. Where does it go wrong? In the beginning, before the project even starts, sometimes it does, through the project, I'm sure, or at the end, probably, when you finish the project, you've got few revenge to sort out at the end, but of course, already 47% of you have already voted. I know some of the poll doesn't get to you because of the geographical location where you are based. So where does it go wrong? Paul, what's your thought on that? Where would you see the percentage balance out?
Well, if it was my personal opinion, I'd say it's 80% before the project even starts. And again, on my training course we're doing, I spend a whole module just on, from the contractor's point of view, on starting the project correctly. But obviously the client has got a huge amount of work to do, and the designers, before the project even starts. So.
Here we go. There's been 100 of us here right now, and I'm going to share the result, and the results are here. So as you can see, we've got 28% in the beginning, 19% says before the project even start, throughout the project 61%, and at the end 10%. I mean, do we have a problem at the end? I mean, does the project go wrong at the end? I mean, is there such a thing?
I'm sure it can be. There's many projects and contractors. I showed you that slide right at the beginning where you've had the contractor staying on the project longer than it took to build them in the first place. So, projects that are built in 12 or 14 months and the contractor sitting there for 18 months. And a lot of the legal battles and closing the final accounts come at the end. So
I take it the poll there, Paul, 28% plus 19%. That's about right? Before the project start, or would you have liked to see more of that percentage increased?
No, maybe I'm wrong.
Okay. All right, Paul, you're never wrong. I can assure you that.
Be interesting to get the feedback why people say that, but
Yeah.
that's for another day.
Excellent. But 61 says throughout the project, does that make sense when people start working together and things start, the egos kicks in, the lack of team workmanship, the lack of leadership as well? What's your thought on that? Well,
maybe some of those issues come in because the project was badly planned and priced at the beginning, so before it started.
Thank you, Paul. Take part with part 3 away, and thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, so where does it go wrong? And as I say, it starts in the beginning, before the project even starts. Then it goes through the project, as we've seen from the poll there, and even until the end, again, as the poll came out. So let me put my opinion and look at 6 ways I think we can improve collaboration on our project. So project risks. And project risks was an item that was brought up right at the beginning on that poll Anil did. So are the risks allocated appropriately? And can the party allocated the risk mitigate the risk? Can the party bear the risk and recompense the other parties when it goes wrong? So I'll go into some detail. So what happens on a project? Before the project starts, the clients move the risks to the contractors. And what does the contractor do? Well, they move the risks down to their subcontractors. In the end, who is managing the risk? Probably nobody, or certainly not someone who can control and mitigate the risk. And when the risk does eventuate, when things do go wrong, can that poor subcontractor who's lumbered with the risk compensate the project for the losses? So let me take this analogy, if you'll bear with me. So imagine we've got an ocean liner and it's about to sail, say, across the North Atlantic, and there's a possibility of icebergs like the Titanic was, hitting iceberg. So before the ship sails, the captain says to the owners, you know, this is a risky time of year. There's a possibility of icebergs. I don't want to hit an iceberg. You know, can't you pay for some extra people so we can put them out looking out for icebergs? Or maybe you can spend some extra money and we can install a high resolution radar to pick up the iceberg. And the client says, no, I'm not spending any more money. It's your responsibility. And the poor captain, he says, well, if I can allow me to get to the destination a couple of days later, then I can travel more slowly and take avoiding action. And the owners say, no, you deliver, you get to the destination on time, or we don't pay you. So the captain says, well, you know, there's a risk that we might hit icebergs on the journey. And the owners say, well, if you hit an iceberg on the journey, you can be sure you're never going to captain another ship. And we're going to make sure you're not going to captain another ship if you're responsible for taking the ship into an iceberg. And there's damage to the ship. We'll make your life hell because you won't captain another ship again. So what does the poor captain do? He's lumbered with the risk of hitting icebergs. He's got to deliver the ship on time. And the captain thinks, well, if I'm responsible for hitting an iceberg, I'll never have another job as a captain. So what I'm going to do is pass the responsibility down, and he passes the responsibility to the officer on the watch, the officer on duty, and it says, well, you're responsible for getting the ship through the iceberg alley at full speed. And the officer, the watch says, well, yeah, okay, but I also got to do navigation. So while I'm in the back on the charts, he says to the helmsman, the person steering the ship, well, you need to look out for icebergs. And the helmsman says, well, I need 2 hands to steer the ship. I can't lift the binoculars. I'll see the iceberg when we're right on top of it, and then I'll try to take avoiding action. So look, maybe the engineer down below's got somebody to look out for the iceberg. So calls down to the engineer and says, can you look out for the icebergs? The engineer's below decks. Obviously, he can't look for icebergs. He's busy making sure the engines are running fine. So he says, well, the best I can do, I can ask that seaman to go and make sure the pumps for the ship are working, so that if we hit the iceberg, at least the pumps will be working. So nobody's looking for the iceberg. The ship hits the iceberg and of course takes on water. There's so much water coming in, the pumps can't cope anyway, and the ship's busy sinking. So what does the captain do? Well, he calls up the owners and says, well, look, unfortunately we're sinking, we've hit this iceberg. The good thing is, of course, I'm not responsible for it, because we've actually found the person responsible for it. It was the seaman right down below decks, and the pumps he was working on didn't pump out all the water after we hit the iceberg, and they're not powerful enough. So and the good news is we're going to make that seaman pay for it. We've agreed that the penalty is going to be $10,000 a year off his salary. Of course, it'll take 10,000 years before he can pay us for a new ship. But so what happens? Nobody was looking out for the icebergs. Nobody was prepared to take responsibility or spend the money looking to prevent the risks from occurring. The project or the ship sank, and everybody goes down with the ship. And unfortunately, that's what often happens with projects, is everybody's so quick to pass the risks. Nobody's taking the time. Nobody's prepared to spend an extra money to look out for those risk events, look out for those icebergs, because I can tell you what, on every project, there are icebergs out there. Whether you're on a ship, you've got to be looking out for other ships, for icebergs, for the weather, whatever else, and yet our projects, nobody's looking out for the risk, because everybody wants to pass the risk down until the person or the company that's supposed to be looking for the risk, well, they below decks, they can't possibly see that risk coming up when it does, and when it eventually does, they certainly don't have their contract, in terms of the whole contract, is a minor portion. So it's important that risks are carried by those who can control them, that they shared responsibly, and shifting risks down to the lowest subcontract does not protect the project. And it often leads to a failed project. And that's failure for everybody. That's what our clients, that's what project managers, that's what contractors need to understand. You need to manage the risk, and that's collaboration to manage the risks. So it's important to manage the risks properly and appropriately, so that the project doesn't sink with everybody. So the second thing, it's all down to price. Yeah, crazy sale. But is the cheapest price really the cheapest price?
Yeah.
And what is the price of failure? So clients select the cheapest contractor. Often, maybe not always, but often they pick the cheapest contractor, with little thought to whether that price is doable. Can the contractor actually do the project for that price? And secondly, can the contractor, do they have the experience, the knowledge, the resources to do the project? You know, it kind of staggers me that some clients on $1 million project, they just take the contractor with the cheapest price. But that same client, if they need some fruit or bananas, they go into the market or the supermarket or wherever it might be. They don't just say, give me the cheapest bananas. They actually look at the quality of the bananas. Well, the cheapest bananas that are going to cost me $1 a kilogram or whatever it is, well, these look half rotten, they're overripe, and they're not going to pay that. They're going to look at the next cheapest, which might be the green bananas. They might take the green bananas, say, look, there's a risk with getting the green bananas, but we can manage that risk. We know what we're buying. We know that the bananas are green. We can manage the ripening process. But they're probably going to pick the bananas that look ripe, that look the best, and they're going to be prepared to pay a little bit more. But when it comes to their $1 million project, well, if they can get it at $50,000 cheaper, they're going to take the cheapest price.
Absolutely.
And of course, you contractors are sitting behind the screen and you're smirking there, you're smiling because you think, yeah, Paul's going after the clients, that's a good thing. But you contractors do exactly the same. You also take the cheapest subcontractor and supplier and not looking at whether they can do the job, whether their price is fair, a fair reflection of it. Why is their price cheap? Sometimes it's because the contractor is innovative, or they're working nearby, they've got the right team or the right equipment. But have you actually asked the question? Have you actually checked that that's a reasonable price to do the work? Or you just after the bargain, the crazy sale price?
Yeah.
So can the contractor or subcontractor do the work for that price? Who cares? They were the cheapest, and that's what counted. But of course, you will care when the contractor goes bankrupt, finishes the project late, delivers poor quality work, is difficult to manage, or launches spurious claims or change orders and takes time to manage. You will care when the project fails, but of course by then it's too late. But then you'll simply blame the contractor or subcontractor and not your poor decisions. We must move past price trumps all if we're truly to collaborate. It can't just come down to price. It can't come down to who is the cheapest. It's got to come down to who is going to be the best player for that position in the team, who can deliver the project, and be prepared to pay a little bit extra to get the right contractor, the right subcontractor, the right supplier. Because we must employ reputable contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers who have the resources, skills, and knowledge for the work, even if they're not the cheapest. Because at the end of the day, I can guarantee that it will be the cheapest for the project, because a failed contractor, a failed subcontractor will lead to a failed project.
Absolutely.
So moving on, fairness, integrity, honesty, respect, ethics. Do these words still exist in the construction industry? So what do you think, Anil? Do these words still exist in the construction industry?
Yeah, I think I do. You know, there's a lot of people watching right now as well, and there's a lot of professional institutions that demand and champion fairness, integrity, honesty, respect, and ethics. And if you agree with me, everyone, can you put your hands up as well, please? If you can use your little emoji for Paul to know that really, if does exist. I'll try to put a poll survey as well. But yeah, Paul, please proceed. Thank you.
So what do I mean by fairness? Well, fairness, it's about paying contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers what is due to them and on time. It's about adjudicating variations, change orders fairly and quickly. It's about applying the contract in a consistent manner, not using it only in your favor. And what is integrity? It's delivering a quality project that meets the project specifications. It's not claiming for work which you haven't done. And importantly, it's admitting when you're wrong or made a mistake. And what is honesty? Honesty is not hiding mistakes. It's not hiding problems. And it's claiming fair costs and variations. So what do I mean by respect? What is respect? It's treating people as you expect to be treated. And I think that's almost where the collaboration starts first. It's about treating people as you expect to be treated. It's not having those stand-up shouting matches. It's not pushing only your opinion. It's listening to others.
Absolutely.
But importantly, it's about listening to and understanding their point of view, understanding what they're trying to tell you, where they're coming from. So it's about not letting egos, prejudices, and preconceived ideas get in the way of working relationships in the project. It's about realizing and acknowledging the importance of others to the success of the project. You need that contractor, you need that subcontractor, you need those suppliers.
Absolutely.
They're important to the project, and it's important that they're successful. If they're successful, the project will be successful.
So Paul, just at the back of the, I've got a survey for you. When you asked me the question, do these words still exist in the construction industry? Fairness, integrity, honesty, respect, and ethics. I've got a poll survey done. What do you think would be, based on your global experience? Would it be a yes or a no? What's the percentage like?
I would think it would be tending to a no.
Okay, so here we go. The poll is here. 60% says yes, although 41% says no. I think you've just got it there. So any thoughts on that, Paul?
Well, it's good that we got that there is a lot of people that do think that there is fairness and honesty, and that's what we want it to be. I mean, that's the important thing, you know. We need to be fair to people in our team and to other contractors. So
thank you, Paul. Thank you very much indeed.
So why are ethics important? And yeah, I again, this is a subject I could talk several hours about, ethics and what are good ethical standards and what aren't poor ethics. So being ethical sets the tone of the relationship between the contracting parties. Unethical practices lead to a breakdown of relationships. If you as a contractor feel that you're being treated poorly by the client, you're going to be more tempted to take shortcuts, to look for ways of claiming money from the client, and vice versa. So when ethical behavior is uncovered, it leads to a breakdown in trust. And trust is very important within construction. So good ethical practices are an essential part of a company's reputation. And unethical behavior is contagious. Unethical behavior breeds more unethical behavior. So that's very important for contractors to understand. If they seem to be unethical in the way they treat subcontractors, not paying them on time, cutting money from their claims, if they seem to be unethical and overcharging the client, that message goes down to the people within the contractors organization. And often it leads to issues of theft, for issues of untruthfulness, when workers think, oh, well, the company's robbing the client, so it's okay for me to steal a bit of money, because after all, the contractor, my company's making money because they're cheating the client or they're cheating the subcontractor. So that's acceptable behavior, and anyway, the money they've earned in unethical ways, so okay to steal from them. And where, as I said, the contractor believes he's being treated unfairly by the client, they're going to look at ways of getting the money back. And the same with the subcontractors. If the subcontractor's not getting paid properly, if he's had money deducted unfairly from their claims, they're also going to look of ways to recover that money. Where can they get that money back from the contractor? How can they get the money back? And it is by lodging false claims, by claiming for work they haven't done, by taking shortcuts, not installing the right material. So unethical behavior is contagious. And unethical behaviors often lead to increased costs. Our ethics, or lack of ethics, express who we are and define our dealings with others.
Absolutely.
So coming on to, I think it's the fifth point, good communication. Are we communicating openly with the team? And are they listening? In fact, do they care about what you're saying? So is your communication building a team, or is it divisive? So in the industry, all over the world, really, we get a lot of negative communication, pushing people into different camps. So is your communication uniting the team, or is it pushing people further away from you? Is it alienating people in the way you're communicating? Or are you building trust and openness and collaboration with your communication? What is your communication saying?
And Paul, just a quick one as well. I know you're nearly there with communication. Based on your experience, international experience, and the participant watching us today, where would you rank communication in construction project management? Is it in your top 3, top 2, or is it number 1?
It's definitely in the top 3. It's possibly tending to top 1. You know, talking to contractors and project managers, you have to communicate every day, all the time, whether it's to the client, whether it's to people, and that communication is both verbal and written. And, you know, people are so quick to send off emails and replies without actually thinking through and just hold those emails. What is your reply saying? Are you just shooting from the hip, or have you actually read the person's email? Do you understand their concerns? How are you communicating? So communication for contractors, for project managers is super critical, because as we go on there, the last question, is your communication about your needs only, or is it in the project's interests? You know, so many people are only thinking of their interests. Their communication revolves around their problems, not the project's problems and issues. So communication requires both speaking and listening. and listening and understanding. Communication is about talking through problems, not hiding problems, not being scared to talk to the client we've got a problem. It's about resolving the problem. It's about giving early warnings of problems. And of course, contractual issues should be in writing, but this shouldn't prevent you talking through the issue. Not just sending a change order to the client, sending a rude email to the subcontractor because he's slipping on the schedule or whatever. That, yes, needs to be in writing, but it shouldn't prevent you from talking through the issue.
Absolutely.
So good and continuous communication is vital to the success of a project. And good open communication sets the tone of the project. And good communication is respectful of others' concerns. Of course, shouting, swearing, and talking over others is not good communication. And good communication is a two-way process. So sharing experience and knowledge. What can we learn from others? Are we prepared to learn from others? Are you so fixated on your own ideas that you aren't prepared to change? So contractors often have a wealth of knowledge and experience about materials, construction methods, production rates, and equipment, about what's readily available in the area. Yet frequently contractors aren't consulted before the design and project schedule program is finalized by the client's team. And any suggestions and requests for changes are usually turned down, or at best the contractor is expected to pay for the changes to improve constructability. Does that sound familiar to you, Neil?
Yeah.
But often these changes can improve the schedule, they can improve safety, they can improve quality, and importantly, reduce project risks. So indeed, even small design modifications and minor extra costs can yield benefits for the project and all parties. So let's pool our collective knowledge for the benefit of the project. Simplifying the project and making it easier reduces risks. Be prepared to consider other ideas and methods, even if initially they could cost a little extra. If you remember back to my slide of the definition of collaboration, and one dictionary definition was about sharing ideas.
Yeah.
So the project will ultimately benefit by sharing our knowledge, sharing our experience, sharing ideas. How can we make this project better? How can we work together to make it simplify construction? And not just the first thought, oh, that's going to cost us extra money. Let's see and sometimes be prepared to pay the extra money, the extra costs, if it's going to reduce risks, because it's about reducing the risks. If we can reduce risks or mitigate risks, the size of the risk, we're more likely to have a successful project. So the last point is manage, provide advice, and help when a party stumbles. So there will be problems on every construction project. Even the good contractors will make mistakes. Someone will stumble, even let you down. So what is your response to that mistake, to that slippage on the schedule? Do you kick the party, the contractor, the subcontractor when they're down? How does this help your project? None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes.
Absolutely.
So it's easy to blame people and companies when they make a mistake. Write a rude email, put them on notice that you're going to kick the contractor off when they slip against the schedule or deliver poor quality. But proper and proactive management on your part may have prevented the problem occurring, or at least minimized the consequences. We're always quick to blame others, but are we managing the project properly? Could we have foreseen that issue before it arose? Could we work with the contractor? And sure, as I say here, there are sometimes useless designers, project managers, contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers, and there's nothing that can help them. But then why are they working on your project? Why would you have employed useless project managers or designers that you're now blaming? Why did you pick those? So kicking a contractor, subcontractor, supplier when they're down is probably not going to solve the problem or benefit the project. Work out how best to solve the issue. How can you help? How can you limit damages to the project? How can you strengthen the weak link? It should be about rescuing the project. Blaming an individual or company does not solve problems or save projects. And certainly I've had a couple of projects which haven't been run the best, where we've had slippage against the schedule. But fortunately, in those cases, we had project managers that were prepared to work with us and said to us, look, we can see you in trouble, but this section is what is critical for us. We need you to get this part of the project going. We need you to get this part of the project, catch up on the slippage. We need you to put your efforts there. We need you to improve the quality there. And with that understanding, we got through the project. We finished some sections late, but those weren't the critical sections. So it's about working through with your contractors, working through with the subcontractors, picking up that there's a problem early on, but then working through. Sometimes you got to give them that extra little bit of help, that guidance to get through. And we must remember that a lot of our smaller subcontractors don't have senior management full-time on our projects. So you need to be contacting the subcontractor and say, hey, things are going wrong on the project because you could do this better. So how can we solve problems together? How can we collaborate? So just in conclusion, collaboration in the construction industries. As I said, my most successful projects were those where we, as the contractor, worked together with our subcontractors, the client and the client's team, all as one team, focused on delivering the project successfully. That's got to be the focus, on delivering the project successfully, not how much money I can make out of somebody else in the team, not about what I can get away with. It should be focused on delivering the project successfully. And if you focus on that, the rest often falls in place, because if the project's successful, you're probably going to make money. You're probably going to do more projects. So these projects were delivered safely, on time, within budget, and with the required quality. And we made a good profit. Unfortunately, many projects aren't managed in the same way, and there's animosity between the different players from the start. There's a mentality of us and them and not we. We have to get away from that. Often these projects aren't successful, or certainly not as successful for all stakeholders. Maybe the project is finished on time and in budget, but a contractor, a subcontractor, a worker, a supplier has lost money on the project. So it takes teamwork, a spirit of trust and cooperation, and mutual respect to deliver a project successfully. And unfortunately, the way many construction projects are bid, awarding the project to the contractor with the lowest price is a recipe for conflict. Just looking at price alone doesn't mean you're going to get the best player. So here's some questions I'm going to leave you with. So let's ask these questions. When you're doing the project, are we all aiming for win-win? Is everybody on the project focused on a successful project? Does the project come first or our own needs? Are we focused on delivering the project? Do we respect individuals and companies? Or are we disrespectful in our dealings? Say, oh, that's just a contractor. He's just a subcontractor. They're just a supplier. They must work 7 days a week, 24/7. And how do we generate respect? What does our communication say? Our language and our body language. How are we communicating to the other team players? Are we talking down to them just because they are our supplier or our subcontractor? Or are we talking to them as a team, an equal partner in this project? And do we resolve conflict early or do we let it fester? Unfortunately, too many projects, the conflict is left to fester until it blows up in an almighty explosion. Does the contract allocate risk fairly to those that can manage the risk? Is our communication clear? Important, have we selected the right team? And remember, I said it doesn't have to be always the best team. It needs to be the best team for that project.
Absolutely.
The best individuals for that project. It doesn't have to be your number one player always, but it has to be the one for that, for those weather conditions, for that project, for that client. So team member selection is critical. And remember, some people are not team players, and you probably don't want them in your team. So some contractors have a reputation for claims, for not delivering quality, for not collaborating. And are we fair when we adjudicate claims and change orders from our contractors, from our subcontractors? Have we eliminated uncertainty? And is one party's success dependent on another's failure? Do we have prejudices which are impacting our decisions and judgment? And I think there was a question that came up earlier about prejudice, about discrimination, about talking down to young and inexperienced team members. So how can you upskill them and make them part of the team? How can you make them to be an important member of the team? And do we have a hidden agenda? You know, there's so many companies, so many people have this hidden agenda. And does any party in this whole framework of doing a project have a hidden agenda? What is their hidden agenda? Are we communicating honestly? Or are we hiding something? So are we being upfront with the client and saying, we're heading for trouble, we're possibly not going to be able to deliver this project on time. This is what we can do. Are clients being upfront with their contractors? Are they heading for financial problems? So how can we communicate better?
Absolutely.
And are our decisions motivated by short-term price only? And unfortunately, there's so much in the world that is motivated today by short-term price only and not by the bigger picture, which is, in our case, getting the project done. So successful projects are built by a team. We should be striving for a win-win for all. Our success should not depend on another's failure. We should not be climbing on the backs of those that have fallen in front of us. We should be helping everybody have a successful project. And as I said, technology can aid collaboration, but cannot on its own lead to collaboration. We can work together, and collaboration is in your hands. As I've explained, that it's not dependent solely on the client, it's not dependent solely on the type of contract. It's about working together as the contractor with the client owner, with the designers, with the project managers. It's about solving problems together. It's about delivering a project successfully, and importantly, success for everybody. Not that somebody must lose money so that you can make money. Let's be fair to everybody.
Yeah.
So thanks, Anil, for that. Sorry.
Wow.
Maybe some people were expecting me to go into more technical details on collaboration, but my opinion of collaboration, it's a whole lot simpler than that. It's about people working together. It's about people respecting each other and each other's companies.
Absolutely. Can we have a big round of applause for Paul from Perth in Australia? Please take a snapshot of that beautiful slide at the end as well. 6 construction book for construction professional. I'm just going to have a quick breather now, Paul. I'm just going to share my screen with you. I'm just going to share a few bits and pieces so you can have a quick breather as well, Paul, as I conclude. So thank you, everyone. Please put your comment in. We'll pick up your question quickly. Can you see my slide, please? If you can, just quickly, we've got 5 minutes left before we conclude. And you can see my slide. Fantastic. Thank you. So Gargantuan, thank you, Paul. You've shared so much wisdom on a Saturday. It's truly, truly incredible, because it's not just textbook talking. It's a practitioner with over 30 years of construction experience talking to us today. I'm so humble as well. So we've done the question. We'll pick up a few questions at the end. We've done the survey. I'm going to just get back to you with a quick survey to finally conclude. The survey will come up shortly. As soon as, if you haven't bought this book, this is my Bible. I bought this book like 6-7 years ago. And the book talk about, this is Paul books, and Paul says, I've been involved with over 120 projects, and all have had variation claim, some for millions of dollars, almost doubling the project value. And he goes on to say, variation are an inevitable process with construction project. There will be changes and delays, no matter how well they are planned and executed. Yet, more than 99% of my claim was settled amicably, and most of what we claimed was approved. More importantly, we completed further project with the same employer. So definitely get this book. It's a huge little Bible for the construction professional in the industry. I've got it. Unfortunately, I've got it on Kindle, but definitely look into buying this book. And what Paul says is, by being proactive and knowledgeable, like what we've done today, most dispute can be avoided. There's another great book which I've read, and it's to do with the construction management from project concept to completion. And on this one, filled with invaluable tips, insight, and advice, this easy-to-read book takes you from project inception, where the project scope, size, and location is decided, to project planning, budgeting, appointing the project team, investigation, the design process, selecting the right contractor, dealing with the project, and finally commissioning and project completion. Chapter are also covered project scheduling, financial aspect, and contractual arrangement. And then finally, Paul talks about constructing the right project in the right place at the right time, delivering a quality project safely on schedule within project, ensuring the best value for money through the life of the project. And it also goes on to say construction is a team effort built around trust and collaboration. Good communication is essential between all parties. And finally, my most successful project were those where we as a contractor work together with our subcontractors, the owner and the team, which Paul touched on, as one team, focus on delivering the project successfully. And finally, the project was delivered safely, on time, within budget, and within the required quantum, really matching the iron triangle, and we made a good profit, which is very important at the end of the day. So I read this blog, which was from Digital Lead for Cities and Aviation Atkins. This blog is a blog on lockdown is taking digital collaboration to the next level. And what he says is that delivering essential project in difficult time reveal technology's ability to bring us closer together in a crisis, which we are doing today. And he also goes on to say that for professional services organization already undergoing digital transformation, COVID-19 has inadvertently thrust them into a situation where digital adoption is the necessity everyone said it eventually would be. The time is now, whether we like it or not. And he talks about digital design, delivery, and project management has come to the fore, driven by a collective desire to get things done despite the widespread disruption to life as we know it. And finally, for example, why technologies such as Zoom, which we're on today, Skype, Microsoft Teams are of course in full utilization. We are already seeing some interesting, innovative pivots which are taking collaboration to the next level. I want to, before I finally get the wisdom from Paul, I just want to share this beautiful video, which I'm passionate about, and I'll be asking Paul about passion as well. So let me share this with you. Just making sure I've got everything ready for that. Right, so if you can hear the sound and the images, please do let me know. Off we go for this final amazing video as to why we're all part of an industry which make history. Off we go. Okay, so that's a great video. A big round of applause, everyone, for everybody working in the construction industry. If you can raise your emoji on that one, and for Paul as well, as I go back to conclude on the slide as well. Let me just making sure we've got the panel. So thank you very much indeed. Today is my 120th CPD talk for the past 7 years with 13,350 participants. I'd like to thank Paul and all of you for making this happen. And I'm hoping that I'll still keep the passion to keep going and giving back. 120, I never set out to do it, but I still need to keep mentoring and improving our industry and keep collaborating with all of you as we proceed to make our industry better and better and better. So take care, be safe. This is Paul here, as we've seen, and I'm just going to go back to pick up some questions from Paul. Thank you, Paul, again. There's so many questions coming in. So Paul, before we conclude with you, just to let everyone know, please send me your feedback and an email for a certificate attendance at anil@cpdtalk.com. Please send me your feedback as well, which I'll forward to Paul. Paul, just already we got some good feedback from Mr. Kiniwa, very good presentation. Professor Prasad, thank you very much indeed. Paul, what's your last thought in terms of, I mean, there's a few questions there, but I'll just pick up the common one. Why is negotiation so important in our industry? Whether it's an extension of time or a force majeure, why negotiation is so important? That was a question set up by Benjamin.
Well, I think being able to negotiate for a project manager is essential. And you're talking about the bigger picture stuff, but a project manager needs to be able to negotiate with even the people within their team, with the supervisor, foreman, with people. It's not about just saying, well, I'm right. It's often about explaining why you need to do something in a certain way. And negotiating claims, and I do cover it in the book, is important. You need to understand the other person's point of view, the other person's concerns, because only then can you counter them and say, no, you're wrong there. You can't just keep repeating the same I'm right, and you stupid because you don't understand what I'm saying. So, yeah, you need to be able to negotiate and resolve issues through negotiation and not rushing off and employing an expensive lawyer and possibly some from the legal profession with us today. But we can resolve so much conflict on our projects within the team, with the client, with our designers, by being able to negotiate, which is the communication, it's the listening and everything that goes with it.
Yeah, I've got a last question for you. It's a very interesting question from an anonymous attendee. He talked about as part of integrity, you mentioned that one should admit mistake. How does one do that without leaving oneself open to potential lawsuit or affecting their professional indemnity insurance?
Well, I think often these things come out anyway, you know, and I'll give you a quick example. One apartment building, I was on the council of owners, and one of the owners, their car was damaged because we didn't know why, and nobody admitted to the damage. Anyway, we went onto the CCTV, and eventually we found that the contractor who was working on the stairs had dropped something on it. And we said to the contractor, but you knew you did it. You knew you damaged the car, you know. And he said, oh, well, I didn't want to. My insurance company said I mustn't admit these things. But, you know, that's reflecting on that contractor's integrity as well. And are you going to employ a contractor who knowingly damages some part of the building and doesn't admit to it, and that you then ultimately got to go through the long process, possibly even the court process, and then find that he knew all along that he'd made that damage. So, but I think when I say admitting mistakes, so, you know, some contractors, they try and hide things. They hide the slippage against the schedule. We're still going to finish on time. We hide their mistakes, which then come out even long after the project's been finished. They call back because the roof is leaking or the plumbing pipe is leaking. Why don't you just admit that there was poor quality, and if you you would have fixed the mistake while you were constructing the project, not being called back to do it. If you talk to the client and say, we're running behind schedule, at least the client's going to be upset. They're going to thump the table and they say, you better finish on time. But, you know, you got to say, well, we can't finish on time. This is what I can give you. At least the client can start planning around it and not come at the last minute to say they've got the removal trucks, everybody ready to come in, and you say, sorry, that the project's only going to be finished in a month's time, you know.
Okay. Paul, thank you very much indeed. What's your last word of wisdom to all us watching us? And where do you get the drive, tenacity, and so much to give back? Where do you get that drive? That's my first question. And second, what's your last word of wisdom to all of us watching and many that will be watching on YouTube later on?
Well, I think, there's really no excuse for a poor project. There's no excuse for an unsuccessful project, and we can do better. I could have done better through my career, and a lot of my teachings is also sharing my failures along the way as well. So like you've had, and congratulations to you, 120 CPD lectures, so there must be thousands of people who've benefited and are better. And yes, I know that I've sold on the one book over 5,000 copies. So I hope that even if a person only took one thing out of that book, well, they're going to be a better contractor from that. So yes, we can make the industry better. We can have more successful projects.
And Paul, before I finish, my trademark question to you, what was the best advice you were given when you were a young engineer or a senior practitioner? What was the best advice you were given by anybody in your industry? I know you probably have many, but probably just pick one.
No, I can't think of one. I mean, I always tell youngsters when they ask me that question is, you need to keep asking questions. Contractors are so bad at teaching youngsters. Unless you ask, you're not going to learn. Unless you ask for more responsibility, because contractors are poor delegators. So ask. You can learn from your foreman, from the supervisors, from the tradesmen, from your boss, from the subcontractors, from other contractors, and keep learning.
Okay, so I'm just going to launch this poll, which I've not launched actually. Remind me quick about how many of you would like to promote collaboration in your project based on the amazing, awesome, entertaining, engaging presentation. Would love to have your view. Definitely collaboration is the way forward to deliver project on time, on quality, on budget, and really to get the relationship going and have repeat instruction, as Paul mentioned numerous times on the presentation. So thank you everyone for all voting. I'm just going to now, and Paul, what's your thought on that? What's the percentage in terms of how many of the audience would like to collaborate?
I'm sure 100%.
Well, Paul, you are right. So thank you very much indeed. 100% of you have voted to say we want to collaborate, we want to deliver project on time, on budget, and more importantly, teamwork. Paul, I can't thank you enough for being here from Australia today with us. We are humble, honored, and privileged. So thank you very much indeed, everyone. Can we have a big round of applause for Paul, please, for the presentation, and as you can see as well there, for 100% collaboration. Paul, and do you think, in terms of collaboration, are you having any workshop, not workshop per se, but any plan to put a document together?
No, I certainly hadn't thought about it until you brought it up. So yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for people staying in and listening to me. And the important thing is, you all can make a difference. You all can make that difference, that collaboration on your project. You're not waiting for the client or for someone in particular. It starts with you to want to collaborate, to want to work as a team.
All right, thank you. We've reached 2 hours and 15 minutes of CPD talk today. Thanks to Paul this morning. It's already 4:30 in the evening at Paul. Thank you very much indeed. Take care. Paul, can we have a word from you to say thank you and goodbye? Take care. Thank you very much indeed. Please send your feedback and your email, which I'll forward to Paul. Thank you very much indeed, Paul. I'm hugely passionate, and people like you will fuel me to do more of giving back to the industry. So thank you very much indeed. Take care and have a great day and have a great Saturday. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
And you. Thank you very much indeed. Bye.